NASCAR is a unique sport when it comes to its schedule and venues. During a typical season, they will visit 25 plus unique tracks to make up their marathon of a season. There have been tracks on the schedule from the beginning, tracks that have held their first cup races in the last couple of years, tracks that once held races and are now abandoned, world-renowned tracks, and everything in between. Hi, I'm your host Matt, and this is NASCAR Track History, presented by Dogleg Media. I'm a history buff who loves racing, especially NASCAR, and wanted to learn more about the hallowed grounds that host my favorite sport. We explore a wide range of topics in respect to the track, when and why it was built, who was the first to win, who dominated the track, some of the most memorable moments to happen there, and much more. We are starting this one out the way that we start our Cup Series season, with Daytona International Speedway, as voted on by you, the viewers. But with that intro out of the way, let's dive into some NASCAR track history. I think it's important to start at the origins of the track, so let's talk some pretty basic facts about the track that hosts NASCAR's most prestigious race, the Daytona 500. Daytona International Speedway was built in 1959. It has 123,500 grandstand capacity. Its primary configuration is a 2.5 mile tri-oval super speedway, and it has had 71 different winners, 69 of which have been on the tri-oval. Plans to build the track originated all the way back in 1953, with NASCAR founder Bill France Sr. wanting a way to promote the series in the area that at the time was racing at the Daytona Beach Road Course. The Daytona Beach Road Course will have its own video where we discuss NASCAR's original circuits. France wanted a high-banked track to provide a better viewing experience for fans and to allow for much higher speeds. The construction would break ground on November 25, 1957, and the track would officially be complete and open for business on February 6, 1959, with its first practice session being held that day. The total construction cost for the project would be $3 million, which adjusted for inflation that would be $33 million today, which sounds like a steal to build a 447-acre, 2.5 mile super speedway in a beach town. The track has seen some renovations and repaves in its time, with the last repave of the surface happening in 2010. The track has had a few different configurations, so let's take a look at them here. The most recognizable configuration would be the 2.5 mile tri-oval. This would be the original configuration that happened from the very beginning. And then there's the sports car course. This 3.56 mile 12-turn road course began in 1985 to host such events as the Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona. And then of course there was the makeshift NASCAR road course at Daytona. The 3.57 mile 14-turn road course would only hold 2 Cup Series events. These would come in 2020 and 2021, with Chase Elliott winning the first and Christopher Bell winning the last, with this being his first career win. And then there's a motorcycle course configuration. This would come about in 2005 and it still hosts events today as well. Now let's dive into some driver stats associated with this historic track. A stat that I wanted to discuss here would be which drivers got their first career wins at Daytona. As we discussed before, there have been 69 different drivers to win on Daytona's 2.5 mile tri-oval and 2 winning on the road course. 23 of those 71 would get their first ever Cup Series win at the track. I want to spotlight them here. First up is Johnny Rutherford. Rutherford would get his first of 27 career wins at the track in 1963, and would accomplish the same feat Shane Van Gisbergen would recently do, winning their first ever start. And then there's Tiny Lund. Lund would get his first of 5 career wins the very next race at Daytona, winning the Daytona 500 for his first Cup Series win, and this won't be the last time that we'll see that. And then there's Bobby Isaac. A Hall of Famer, Isaac would get his first Cup win in a Daytona 500 qualifying race in 1964, being the first of 37 wins for him. And then of course AJ Foyt. A motorsports legend, Foyt would collect win number 1 of 7 at the 1964 Firecracker 400 at the track. And then there's Earl Balmer. This would be Balmer's only Cup Series victory, taking home the trophy in a Daytona 500 qualifier in 1966. And now there's Sam Quagg. Another one-time winner, McQuagg would win the 1966 Firecracker 400. And here's a big one, Mario Andretti. The greatest driver of all time in my opinion, Andretti would win NASCAR's greatest trophy in 1967, where he would win the Daytona 500. This would be Andretti's only NASCAR victory. Next up would be Pete Hamilton. Hamilton would also get his first career win in the Great American Race, driving the Petty Enterprises 40 machine to a win in the 1970 Daytona 500. This would be the first of 4 wins for Hamilton. And next up is Greg Sacks. One of only a few winners in the number 10, Sachs would get the only win of his career at the 1985 Firecracker 400. And here's a familiar name, Derek Cope. Cope is yet another driver to get his first win in the Great American Race, and this was widely considered a massive upset with his victory in the 1990 Daytona 500. He would collect 2 total wins in his career. And then there's Sterling Marlin. A 10-time winner in the Cup Series, Marlin would get his first win in the 1994 Daytona 500. He would then follow that up by winning the 500 the very next season in 1995. And then we have Jimmy Spencer, another driver who would get their first career win at Daytona in 1994. Spencer would win the July race that season, being the first of 2 wins in his career. And then there's another famous name. This time it's John Andretti. The nephew of racing legend Mario Andretti, John would get his first of 2 Cup Series wins in the 1997 Pepsi 400. And the next driver to get their first career win at Daytona is a sad one. It's Michael Waltrip. We all remember this one for the wrong reason. Michael Waltrip would get his elusive first win after 16 years of trying in the 2001 Daytona 500. He wouldn't get to celebrate this win for long, as he would learn the same terrible news we all would, that his friend and team owner Dale Earnhardt had died in a crash at the end of the race. This win would be the first of 4 wins for Waltrip. And then we have the Biff. Greg Biffle would get the first of 19 wins in his rookie season at the 2003 Pepsi 400. And the next winner on our list was widely suggested for our memorable moments segment. It's Trevor Bayne. This is another Cinderella story. Bayne would take the historic Wood Brothers Ford to victory lane in the 2011 Daytona 500, the only win of his career. In that same season, David Reagan would get the first of 2 wins in his Cup Series career at the 2011 Coke Zero 400. And then there's Eric Almirola. Almirola would get the first of 3 career wins in a rain-shortened Coke Zero 400 in 2014. Another current driver to get their first win at Daytona is Eric Jones. Jones is another 3-time winner to get their first career win at the Coke Zero 400. This time it would be in 2018. And here's one that a lot of people probably forgot, but it's Justin Haley. I know I definitely forget it sometimes, but Justin Haley would win at rain-shortened Coke Zero 400 in 2019. This is still the only win of his career so far. And then there's the driver of the 24, William Byron. Byron is really starting to pick up steam. The 8-time Cup Series winner would get his first career win at the 2020 Coke Zero 400. And who's ready for another Cinderella story? This time it was Michael McDowell. McDowell would pull off yet another massive upset with his win in the 2021 Daytona 500. We mentioned this earlier when talking about the different configurations, but Bell would get his first career win at the last Daytona Road Course race in 2021, the very next week after McDowell's win. Now, I'm adding this in post right now, but I totally forgot that Austin Cindric also got his first career win at Daytona. Cindric would win the 2022 Daytona 500, the first race of his official rookie season. So when you look back at the stats for the first part of this video, just know that it's 72 different winners at Daytona, with 70 of those coming on the oval configuration. And that was a lightning round of drivers. Now let's move on to some track records for Daytona International. First up is first to win. The first to win on the high banks of Daytona would be the convertible king Bob Wellborn. He would win the qualifying race for the inaugural Daytona 500. This was at a time when the qualifying races paid points. And then we have the qualifying lap record. Awesome Bill from Dawsonville holds the record qualifying lap at Daytona. With a blistering 42.783 second lap, he crossed the line at 210.364 miles per hour. Now that's fast. And then we have the record for most wins. And the driver with the most wins at Daytona is none other than the king himself, Richard Petty. Petty amassed 10 total wins at Daytona, with 7 of those being in the Daytona 500, an unbelievable stat. And then we have the most poles. The record for most poles at Daytona is an impressive number. The Hall of Famer and 3-time champion Kel Yarbrough holds the record, with 13 pole positions earned at Daytona. 8 of those would come in the July race. And then we have the largest field. We're used to seeing 36 to 40 cars on the track, and some of us older fans even remember 43 cars being on the track for the longest time. The largest field ever for a race at Daytona came at the second ever Daytona 500, where Junior Johnson would best a field of 68 drivers, including over a dozen Hall of Famers. Now that would be a chaotic thing to see in today's time. And then we have the oldest Daytona 500 winner. Sometimes the old guys have to teach the young guns a lesson or two. Bobby Allison certainly did that in the 1988 Daytona 500, when he would win at the ripe age of 50. I don't think we're going to see that record broken anytime soon. And then lastly, we have the closest finish at the track. The closest finish to ever happen at Daytona would be the fourth closest finish in NASCAR history. It would happen in the 2007 Pepsi 400. Jamie McMurray and Kyle Busch would put on an instant classic of a battle on the last lap, with McMurray coming out victorious by 5/1000th of a second in what was one of the best finishes I've ever seen at the track. That was such a fun race from start to finish. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go back and watch it for yourself. And I know I'm certainly forgetting some pretty cool records here, so let me know which records I may have missed down below. And now we move on to memorable moments. And we're definitely starting at a great track for memorable moments. This is the honorable mentions segment for those of you who are familiar with the Number History series. For those of you who aren't, every week you send me your most memorable moments of the featured track that's coming up, and they may just get featured in that track's video. Noah suggested a classic moment in Daytona history, Dale Earnhardt finally winning the Daytona 500 in 1998. This was a massive moment for Earnhardt and the sport, and the gravity of the accomplishment was felt throughout the field, with every team lining up on pit road to congratulate Earnhardt on his monumental win. And then Arceus Bowser, Noah, MJS Ultimate, and Dice Guy all suggested one of the weirdest and wildest things to happen during a race at Daytona. They're talking about when Juan Pablo Montoya would hit a jet dryer under caution. This would cause a massive fireball to erupt, and thankfully everyone involved was okay. To this day, I still wonder how this even happened, but it's a great mention nonetheless. Pendragon and ITCPS suggested a moment from one of our first-time winners, when Trevor Bayne would shock the sport with their upset win in the Daytona 500 in 2011. A great win for a great organization, no doubt. Danny and Tyler suggested both races that happened in 2001. As we all know, the 2001 Daytona 500 was plagued by the death of a legend of our sport. The very next race at the World Center of Racing would be one of the most emotional triumphs we will ever see, as Dale Jr. would win, using lessons learned from his father to go from 6th to 1st and score the win at Daytona. The celebration seen in the infield after the race is one of the best moments in our sport. And that'll do it for the inaugural episode of NASCAR Track History. This was an extremely fun bit of research, and we have only just begun. I hope it was as fun for you, the viewer, as it was for me. I'm prone to forgetting drivers or stats. Let me know anything I may have missed for Daytona in the comment section down below. And we will be back next time with the history of Atlanta Motor Speedway. We're going to start going in alphabetical order now that we've gotten Daytona out of the way for our inaugural episode. Be sure to let me know in the comments section down below your most memorable moments from Atlanta. If you like the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing. It helps a ton and I definitely appreciate it. Did you know that 77% of my viewers aren't subscribed, but they are returning viewers? If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Be sure to check out the community tab of the channel as well. We do cool little giveaways like autographed merch and other goodies, as well as post updates and polls for the channel. You don't want to miss it. We also have a Discord server. Check out the About section of the channel or the description below for that invite to join us for even more fun and learning over there. But that'll do it for us here at Dogleg Media. I'm Matt, your host, and you've been watching NASCAR Track History. I'll see you next time.